Hey, Meg.
Hey, what?
What would you do if your entire family was wasting away one by one, and the only explanation the town could give was something straight out of a horror story?
Hmm.
Well,
I don't know.
well, in 1892, the people of Exeter, I probably should have looked that one up, Rhode Island, were convinced that a teenage girl, dead and buried, was rising from the grave to drain the life from her brother. They called her a vampire. And this is the chilling true story of Mercy Brown and the desperate, gruesome ritual that's left her name etched in legend. Welcome to the Your Town Podcast. Yeah, how about that? This is going to be a wild one. Obviously, the voice you're hearing, it's me, it's Matt, and joining me as always is the queen of the dun dun dun, Meg.
I didn't feel like it was time yet.
No, but you are the queen of the dun dun dun.
I feel like you waited for it for a second. You paused for it. I wasn't ready.
No, I was pausing for like dramatic effect, really trying to get the viewers and the listeners engaged to stick with us for more than a minute. Now that we're at a minute and 15 seconds, I think we got them.
It just didn't feel right there.
No, that's understandable. I mean, you are the queen of the dun dun. You can do the dun dun whenever the dun dun feels like it's the right time for the dun dun.
Hey, everybody.
And obviously, we're heading to Rhode Island, the small state of Rhode Island. We haven't done this state yet. Checking another off the box. We're getting close. I bet you we're about 10 states away from hitting every single one of them. But as always, listeners, if there's a story or a state that you want to recommend or, toss our way, feel free. Shoot us a message, Matt, over Matt at beardlaws.com or the Beard Laws Studio or the Beard Laws Instagram. And we will get to it. So this story, though, it's going to chill you to the bone. Not only is it northeast weather, winter here, that'll chill you to the bone, but so will these nice, cold, delicious beverages from our friends at Fix Vodka. They're helping to keep us warm and chill us to the bone. But this is a story of disease, death, desperation, and it might be one of the strangest cases of vampirism. Is that a word?
It is now.
It is now. Vampirism, the strangest case, maybe in all of American history, the mystery of Mercy Brown. I'm pretty much like Dr. Seuss at this point. When do you want to do the intro, or do you want to skip it?
I feel like we shouldn't skip it. Do it now.
Okay. That's the wrong one. Sorry about it. This is the right one. It's not the right one.
It's not the right one.
It's not the right one. What is going on here? We're going to listen to this. That is a unplanned Triple T little jingle. If you're wondering what that is, go check out the Triple T show that follows us on Tuesday in the Beard Laws Studio. Now let's get to the Your Town intro.
Right now.
That's much better. Sorry about it. Things happen. Anyway,
Making sure they're listening, right?
Just making sure you guys are paying attention. Now that we have your attention, let's go ahead and set the stage. The year, Meg, is 1892. And we're in where?
Rhode Island.
Yeah. How would you say that, though? Exeter?
Exeter?
Yeah, that's how I'd say it. Exeter, Rhode Island. Picture this, all right? It's a small, rural farming town in a very small state with population that is so sparse, it almost feels like deserted. I feel like we can relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
Life here, though, it's tough. The winters, they're harsh. Medical care, scarce. And farming is backbreaking work. To make matters worse, Meg, tuberculosis. But back then, they called it consumption. It's ravaging the area. Tuberculosis isn't just a disease. It's essentially, at this time, it's a death sentence. It slowly drains the life just from its victims, leaving you pale, gaunt, and coughing up blood. Now imagine watching your loved ones just waste away like this, one after the other, and you have no idea why. You'd be scared. You'd be desperate. And when science doesn't give you answers, superstition often goes ahead and steps in. This brings us to the Brown family. Old George Brown. He was a farmer, and he was the head of the household. But his family was being wiped out by the old tuberculosis. First, his wife, Mary Eliza, died in 1883. Then it was just a few years later, the eldest daughter, Mary Olive, also succumbed to the disease. Things, unfortunately, Meg, didn't stop there. January 1892, George's 19-year-old daughter, Mercy, fell ill and passes away. But the nightmare, it's not over. Mercy's brother, Edwin, was now sick too. He was wasting away, coughing, pale as a ghost. The doctors, unfortunately, couldn't save him, and the townsfolk started whispering. They weren't just talking about tuberculosis. They weren't talking about the weather. They weren't talking about the bad crops that year. They believed something far darker was at play. A vampire.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, there it is. The Dun-Dun Queen strikes again. Vampires, Meg? Yep, you heard me right.
Huh.
New England in the 18th and 19th centuries had its own unique take on the vampire myth. People believed that when a family member died, their spirit or even sometimes their body could come back to feed on the living. Could you imagine living in 1892? You don't obviously have the internet.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really have any technology,
Mm-hmm.
let alone being in such a rural area. That next thing you know, like maybe you have some doctors, maybe you have the mayor, maybe you have the head of the Farmers Association that starts talking. What do you do? Especially, I'd have to imagine, as a child and even as a woman in the 1800s, you know what I mean? Like you kind of just have to go along with whatever certain men would say and think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, they're tossing around vampires. Which maybe it's not illogical. I mean, what else could it be? For years, I mean, even if you're watching, shows that have caves and the drawings and all the stuff from back in the day, you're seeing creatures. Science isn't really a thing, especially in these areas, let alone travel, technology. You gotta think something's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Who would have thought tuberculosis? And of course, we live in a world where, we can, as a child, take a little shot and you'll never get tuberculosis. And we're thankful for that. They didn't have that. So, I mean, people are talking. And it's pretty scary. But, like I said, they're thinking vampires. They're going to come back. They're going to feed on the living. The symptoms, obviously, we already talked about with tuberculosis, nasty paleness, weight loss, coughing of blood. They were very eerily similar to what the folklore described victims of a vampire attack.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think vampire attack, what's the main thing that you think of? Or at least I think of.
I would say most people would think puncture wounds.
That's what I'm thinking. Some kind of puncture wound, a bite of some sort, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like I would think of vampire, right? I want to suck your blood. How's that? Was it a good vampire?
That was good.
I think that's what they sound like. But we're in March 1892, just 2 months after Mercy's death. Townfolk demanded action. So you know what they do, Meg? They convinced this Father George to exhume his family members. Could you imagine? This dude's been through total tragedy, something that nobody should have to go for. His wife and all of his kids gone. Now the town's like, listen, old George.
So he's the only one left?
Yeah, we got to do something about this. So, March 17th, happy St. Patty's Day, huh, George? It's a chilly March morning in the Chestnut Hill Cemetery. A group of men, they're armed with shovels, gathered to dig up the Brown family's graves. Think they were wearing green?
Mm.
St. Patrick's Day, was it? Do you think it was celebrated that hard in Rhode Island in 1892?
No.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I take back the happy St. Patrick's Day then, old George. So first, Meg, they unearthed old Mary Eliza, the mother, the wife. She had been dead for nearly a decade, fully decomposed. No surprise there, right? Next, they dig up Mary Olive. Olive?
Olive.
Nailed it. She was the oldest daughter. She, too, Nothing more than bones, Meg.
Hmm.
They get to Mercy's grave. They're probably thinking, Lord have mercy. But remember this. She was buried in January, 2 months earlier, and wasn't fully, well, they opened the coffin. They're shocked, Meg. You know why?
What?
Her body was unnaturally well preserved. Her skin hadn't decayed, really. Her organs were still intact. And here's the kicker. Her heart and liver still contained fresh blood. The townsfolk were horrified. To them, this was proof that Mercy was a vampire. And she was actually feeding on her brother Edwin from beyond the grave. Could you imagine, though?
Wild.
I mean, they're thinking that Mercy passed away in a coffin, buried, is getting out of that coffin, feeding on her brother, who was sick at this time, and then returning there during the day. 1800, you know what I mean?
Is this a cold place?
Yeah, Rhode Island's pretty
cold there.
I mean, is anywhere as cold as where we are? Probably not. But Rhode Island gets cold for sure. Harsh winters. Definitely northeast, you know? So you're thinking, now that's pretty bad. But what happens next? This is what sounds like straight from a horror movie. Mercy's heart and liver were actually removed from her body. Then the men place it on a nearby rock and burn them to ashes. But they didn't stop there. In a desperate attempt to save Edwin, they take these then ashes mixed with water and make him drink it.
Ew.
They made Edwin, on his deathbed, drink his sister's burned organs' ashes.
Ew.
And unfortunately, the ritual doesn't work. Edwin passes away 2 months later, another victim of tuberculosis. In the end, though, Meg, the father, George Brown, was one of a very few that were never contracted tuberculosis. And he lived until 1922, just long enough to see bacteriologists Albert Comet and Camille Yore. Didn't say any of those, right? Sorry, docs and bacteriologists, which was tough to say as well. And the others were there, and I was so excited. And then I was like, "Oh, these names aren't easy."
Albert and Camille.
Albert and Camille actually discovered the BCG vaccine, which is widely used to treat and cure tuberculosis. So he gets to see it, but he doesn't get to see it with the people that he loves. All right, let's take a step back. What really happened here? Why is Mercy's body so well preserved? Do you have any ideas?
My thought is that because the ground is so cold,
which
it acts like a freezer.
Which is a great guess, because her preservation wasn't supernatural at all. It was, well, science. She had been buried during a particularly cold winter in a stone crypt, which acted like a natural refrigerator. So her body didn't decay because, well, it was essentially frozen. But in the 1892, germ theory was still new, and rural communities like this little place, Exeter in Rhode Island, didn't understand how tuberculosis spread. Instead of turning to science, they turned to folklore. Mercy became their scapegoat. Today, though, in Exeter, Rhode Island, the story of Mercy lives on. She is still buried at Chestnut Hill Cemetery, and her grave has become a site of fascination for history buffs, ghost hunters, and, well, vampire enthusiasts alike. The Mercy Brown incident was an inspiration for Caitlin R. Kiernan's short story, So Runs the World Away, which makes explicit reference to this actual affair. It has also been suggested by scholars that Bram Stoker, ever heard of him? The author of the novel Dracula, knew about the Mercy Brown case through newspaper articles and based the novel's character, Lucy Westenra, upon her. It also referred to the H.P. Lovecraft's The Shunned House. Mercy Brown's story was the inspiration for the young adult novel Mercy, the Last New England Vampire by Sarah L. Thompson. An account of the events, as told by the remaining descendants of Mercy, is available in the Michael E. Bell's food for the dead on the trail of New England's vampires. Kind of wild, huh?
Mm-hmm.
The Mercy Brown story was the main subject of the first episode of the Lore podcast in 2015, as well as the first episode of the television adaptation of the same title in 2017. The Monster Quest episode Vampires in America investigated the Mercy Brown case and actually used it as a reference in the investigation. American rock band Clutch has a song titled Mercy Brown on their 2022 album Sunrise on Slaughter Beach. You ever heard of them?
I have.
The story, have you heard that song?
No.
We're going to jam it after this.
Okay.
And then the story of Mercy Brown is also prominently featured in Paul Tremblay's novel The Pallbearers Club. Wild, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The mystery of Mercy Brown is a reminder of how fear and desperation can shape our beliefs and our actions. It's a haunting tale, but not because of vampires, but because it shows how people cope with the unknown in times of crisis. I don't know. That's wild to me.
Mm-hmm.
But thankfully, or unthankfully, I'm not really sure, I'm living in this era and not that one. So thank you and you in the back, and obviously Meg, for joining us on this journey into the past. If you enjoyed the episode, feel free to let us know. We'd appreciate it. Feel free to leave a review. If you're listening on Spotify, we love those little ratings. Apple Music, everywhere. We'd appreciate it. But you don't have to. It's cool. And as always, if you have a story from your hometown you'd like us to explore, send it our way. There's a lot of small towns, and we'd love to put them on the map, so please send it over. But until next time, keep your eyes open, your mind curious, and remember, every town has a little Yore in its history. That's all we got. Anything else?
No.
That was good. That was fun. You enjoy it?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
It's an interesting story.
Yeah, it's wild.
Mm-hmm.
What should we do next? Should we wait to see if any listeners, viewers have anything? Or
Yeah, let's do that.
all right, we're going to wait for you. There'll be no more episodes until you recommend something. All right, that's all I got. Enjoy your Monday, your Tuesday, your Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever day you're listening to this. Have a good day, a good week, and a good month, especially the holidays. It's happy season, so let's be happy. I don't have anything else. You?
Nope.
All right, I got to go.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.